Hi YouTube. Today I want to talk to you a bit about rejecting labels. This is something that's fairly important in political and philosophical discussions that you're going to have with people in your life. And I think it's especially important for me at this time as I begin to put content and videos on YouTube and I start to get my opinion out there. I think something that happens very quickly with people when evaluating someone else's argument or material is a leap to conclusions, for lack of a more appropriate phrase, about their entire political, philosophical, even emotional stance in one neat little package that is easy to digest. And this is a label. I think that as you begin to make political arguments to someone, you probably come across this in your own life, where you start to make a few arguments about a subject, and someone will interrupt you and jump in and say, "Oh, well, hold on a minute. What are you, a fill in the blank, right? What are you, a Republican? What are you, a Democrat? What are you, one of those anarchists? Are you a libertarian? Let me put this word I don't like on the stuff you're saying to make it easier to understand." Right? And that's really what happens in that conversation there. And that's really my primary point here, is I think that while they have some value, and linguistically I understand, I think that the technique of let's put a label on this person's argument before we've even heard it, before we understand it, and while there has some merit, I think it's very dangerous, and I would go so far as to say it's extremely intellectually lazy. Why is that? Well, because it makes it so that you don't have to consider the argument, right? And if I'm like, oh, whoa, so you're just one of these, insert word here, you're just one of these feminists, you're just one of these this supporters, you're just one of these this people. It's like, oh, you're a Trump supporter, you're a Clinton supporter, you're this, you're that. You put that label on it, and then everything the person is trying to say to you, to communicate to you, is kind of null and void, and set inside this little box over on the side which says, oh, Trump supporter, right? And then not only do you kind of set aside everything they've been telling you and be like, oh, Trump supporter, but you just let your brain create the other person's arguments for you at that point. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm a Trump supporter. And then oh, right? And it's all this stuff instantly filling your head. And to be honest, especially with this specific example, most of that is total garbage. Total garbage, right? Where it's like, oh, this person is a racist now, right? For example, this specific example where someone's like, oh, you're a Trump supporter? Well, yeah, I'm a Trump supporter, but that's not hugely relevant to what I'm trying to say. And boom, you got that label, and now you're racist, now you're sexist, now you're misogynist, now you support everything Trump does. And so to get to my point, I guess, I think that this is something that you should both be careful of doing yourself, in that someone else is trying to talk to you, they're trying to have a legitimate intellectual conversation, right? They're not being ridiculous, they're not just, and I think that that's where there's a place for this, right? If someone is coming at you with a conversation that is not grounded in anything meaningful, or will not lead to any meaningful discussion, right? And they're just being reactive, or they're being super emotional and hateful, then in that sense, I mean, you just saw me put labels on what things people are doing, and it allows me to remove myself from the conversation in exactly the way I'm saying it's a danger to, right? Basically what I'm trying to say is that there is a time and a place for labeling, right? If someone comes at me and is just flinging expletives and is not actually having a real conversation and is just trying to verbally poo all over me, I don't need to interact with that. It doesn't get me anything. And so I can step back and be like, whoa, you're just being a little ridiculous and emotional. This is not doing anything for me. I don't want to, don't need to interact. If you can bring it down from that level, we can interact. But aside from that, I think it's just intellectual laziness, typically. That's typically, by and large, what this is, what this mechanism does for people. And so, I think you should be careful with people. When you're talking to someone, try not to jump to a label. Really try not to jump to a label. And they're trying to tell you something, and they're trying to get their points out, and maybe you're getting a little bit frustrated because you're like, I've heard all this shit before. I've seen this position before, and it's like, wait a minute, are you a pipeline supporter? Right? And by you asking that question, hopefully they answer in a super productive, honest way, and they're kind of hip to what you're doing. And they answer in a way that's not just like, yes, I'm a pipeline supporter, and I would like if you put me in the camp with everyone else who ever said they supported the pipeline and everything they think. And anything they think that was irritating to you, well, just describe that to me now, and then now we can be enemies. That's a route to go, but it's not so good. So try not to claim labels, is first of all, right? Try not to claim labels that people throw at you. Someone's like, oh, you're a Trump supporter, you're a libertarian, you're an ANCAP, you're this, you're that. No. Right, you start to get semantic, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I am a Trump supporter. I voted for Trump. Does that make me a Trump supporter? I don't know. In my own mind, I would say I'm much more of a Trump supporter than a Hillary supporter. I'm not a Trump anti-supporter. I don't not support Trump. He's our president. I think that hopefully he'll do some good things. But that phrase, that label of Trump supporter, while it means some reasonable and rational and simple things to me, to most of the people who would ask me that question in that way, wait a minute, are you a Trump supporter? Right? To most of the people who would ask me that question, it's just a way for them to be super intellectually lazy and to pigeonhole me into a little box without actually digesting any of my arguments. And they say, okay, you're in the Trump supporter box, right? You think all Mexicans are rapists, and you want all Muslims to be kicked out of the country, including the ones that served in the war, and like, oh my God, you're such a terrible person, right? And so that's pretty much the issue. I think I've been kind of rambling a bit, but that last little recap, I think, is the real danger, and that's the real issue. Because that little interaction where they're like, oh, are you a Trump supporter? And you're like, yeah. That really can cut out a lot of other good dialogue you guys could have had. And so my advice for people on both sides is to try to argue issues more individually and give people a chance, because you will often be so surprised by people who you might have labeled, or even themselves might have labeled as Democrat or Republican or Trump supporter or not Trump supporter or any of these things. You might be surprised how much more reasonable those people are than you at first thought when you start to talk to them more about individual issues, right? It's like, oh, well, what do you think about this and this and this? Oh, well, I know that's actually complex and nuanced, and there's several things going on there. And well, okay, I guess it's not that simple, Yeah, I understand your opinion. And all of a sudden, you've went from being Trump supporter, and I'm not a Trump supporter, to like, oh, well, we actually agree on several things, and it's like, blah. Anyway, and that's a much better place to be for figuring things out, right? And that latter place is where we need the world, it's where we need America to be, to make some good progress on these very serious issues that are hampering our country right now. Cultural issues, societal issues, economic issues. If we just continue to separate ourselves into little camps, right, defined by odd little single word or 2-word labels, in which I can just be intellectually lazy and, oh, you're a Democrat? I know everything I need to know about your position. Leftard, libtard, cuck, and then, right, or I'm a conservative, and it's like, oh, I know everything I need to know about your position, you backwards ass, cuck-servative. And I understand. I really do. Whichever side you understand, I really do appreciate and empathize, and just because you've done this behavior yourself, and I'm sure you have, and I have too, right? We all have this in us to be very tribal, to be very primal, right? To be, yay my tribe, boo their tribe, right? But that is not particularly helpful when talking to an educated person about complex issues, right? That's something deep in the recesses of our primitive brain that wells to the surface and makes these discussions harder. So please, YouTube, try to keep that in mind. And if someone asks you, hey, are you this? Insert label here. Try to push back a little bit and ask some important questions. You know, perhaps like, what does that label mean to you? Or personally, when someone asks me these questions, hey, are you this? Especially when it's like, hey, are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you a libertarian? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Those especially. Some labels are more innocuous and less harmful than others. Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, labels like these, the most dangerous. The most, by far, so serious. Be careful. Because someone says, oh, you a Republican? You answer yes, say, oh, yes, I'm a Republican. By the way, I voted for Trump, so some people would say, oh, yes, you should say you're a Republican. I do not consider myself a Republican. I do not consider myself a Democrat. I do not consider myself a Libertarian. In fact, I would not even the more kind of obscure labels that try to break things down further. You're this type of Libertarian, or you're this type of Democrat, or I'm socially this, but I'm fiscally this, or right. Even when you try to break the labels down more, I think that those little breakdowns is just an illusion, where it's like, oh, well, see, I'm not just a Democrat because that's too broad. I'm actually a this-leaning Democrat. And I think, no, man. Just reject the label entirely. Someone's like, oh, are you a Democrat? No, I would not choose to label myself with that. And I don't know why people can't identify with this more easily. Personally, I find it disgusting, and I want nothing to do with labels like Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, ANCAP, all these different labels. Because so many terrible people and terrible things have claimed this one little word label and attributed it and ascribed it to themselves and their ideas. And some of them are so bad. They're so bad. Right? And we've all heard some Republican ideas. They're so bad. Democrat ideas. They're so bad. Right? And crazy libertarians who can't remember where Aleppo is. Thank you, Gary Johnson. Making libertarians look like idiots. So seriously. So, yeah, labels, guys, labels. Try to reject them. If someone says, oh, you're a libertarian, say, no. I reject that label, but I would love to talk to you about any number of issues, right? And if you want to, because that's the thing, what people are trying to do when they ask you that, it's like, oh, are you a libertarian, you a Democrat? They're trying to have like a many-hour political, philosophical discussion in 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Where it's like, oh, what do you think about abortion? What do you think about gay marriage? What do you think about the economy? What do you think about the Constitution? What do you think about gun laws? What do you think about this stuff we could talk about for quite a long time? Why don't you answer all of that for me in 5 seconds right now? You Republican or you Democrat? You agree with all that, right? And that's what's happening. If you say, yes, I'm a Republican, yes, I'm a Democrat, all of those issues, just countless issues, right? You're now saying, oh, yep, that's all me. Or, oh, yep, that's all me. Or, oh, yeah, libertarian stuff, yep, that's all me. I agree with all of that. And you know what? Maybe you do. Right? Because some people might be thinking this, like, whoa, you know what? I'm a hardcore Republican. I agree with everything the Republicans do, let's just say, right? Someone says that. Everything. Even the stuff that most reasonable, rational people find a little silly, like the Republicans being so anti-gay, or at least old school Republicans. Trump's certainly not very anti-gay, but the old school Republican Party, very anti-gay, right? So let's just say that you agree and you get all that stuff lined up for you and you say, oh, yep, I agree, I'm a Republican. Not so good. Not so good, people, right? Because while you may agree, or you think you agree with all those things, and you're like, oh, I'm a Republican to the core, and I'm happy to say I'm a Republican, and I follow the party line, and I always vote Republican, by you just accepting that label blindly with no pushback, and be like, yeah, I'm a Republican, The problem is that your definitions differ. And your definition of Republican, and you saying, yeah, I'm a Republican. Yeah. And the person asking you have wildly different definitions. I fucking promise you. I promise you. They really do. So the person asking you is now developing, you have this list of issues that's like, well, yeah, of course killing babies is wrong, just for one little example about abortion. I have this whole huge list of issues. But then the way the other person is going to see that is, oh my God, this guy doesn't support women's rights. This guy thinks the government should just have control over women's health, sexual health. Oh my God. Right? And that's just one little tip of the iceberg look into what we're talking about, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I'm a Republican, I support everything. The other person's like, oh my God, he thinks women should be chained up in the kitchen. And is that your fault? Well, no. I wouldn't say it's your fault they have misunderstanding. Is it their fault? I mean, the fault is kind of inconsequential. I don't even know if it's relevant. But more important than the fault is the reality that you guys have a different definition. And by you being like, oh yeah, I'm Republican, after they ask, what have you accomplished? What have you accomplished? All you've really done is set you on a different team. It's like now we're really A team, B team. We're really red team, blue team. Big fuck you to the person asking you that question. And they love it because they can just give you a big fuck you back. And be like, oh, fucking Republican, I fucking knew it. Right? So reject the labels and try not to ask people for labels just so you can be lazy. Stop asking me. Stop asking people, what are you, a libertarian? Stop doing it. You're just trying to be lazy. Okay? And when people try to be lazy with you, and you're trying to talk with them about something political or philosophical, reject that and be like, no, I'm not going to let you pigeonhole me into this big group of people with all these varied views and stuff, of which you have a flawed understanding, almost certainly. No, let's talk about something specific. Let's talk about the issues. That's about all, YouTube.